This is an in-depth analysis of Measure for Measure Act 2, probably useful to have your book open with you. We'll be drawing quotes from it, discussing them, why they've been included by Shakespeare, that sort of thing. It follows on from the Act 1 video and hopefully will be followed by an Act 3 video. Hope it helps. Act 2, Scene 1 starts as a conversation between Angelo and Escalus, and obviously they're both lords, so there's more power equality within the conversation. They both got relatively similar lengths of utterances. Angelo then uses an extended metaphor similar to the Duke's. He's saying we can't make a scarecrow of the law, we have to be powerful. We can't just, it's basically the sticks in the corner, we can't just leave them there, we've got to hit people with them. This shows that there are quite similar ideas amongst people in authority, but Angelo actually wants to put them into action. Then we've got Escalus, who argues with Angelo but agreed with the Duke. So Escalus, maybe this means that Escalus has more authority when it comes to Angelo. He's got more power in comparison to Angelo than he did with the Duke. I mean, maybe he's got the same power as Angelo, but in comparison to the Duke, that is quite a lot, proportion-wise. So he's like, let us be keen, cut a little and fall and bruise to death. So he's basically saying, don't totally wreck Vienna, don't destroy all the criminals, just hurt them a little bit, whip them, stuff like that. But then Escalus is also really flattering of Angelo. It's just plain embarrassing, to be honest, proper cringe. He's like, your honour, whom I believe to be most straight in virtue. It's just, you wouldn't say that to someone, would you? Say your mate was there, you wouldn't be like, oh, my dear friend, I've loved you for so long, you're so fabulous. You wouldn't do it unless you're being really sarcastic. But also, there is still this little element of ambiguity with Escalus. He says, I believe to be most straight in virtue. He doesn't say who is most straight in virtue. He says, I believe. So this shows that he doesn't want to say, you are definitely this. He's saying from what he knows, his knowledge of the public Angelo is that he's straight in virtue, which, again, hints the idea that either Escalus is holding something back, he's not being truly honest with us, or maybe Angelo has a totally different personality when he's public and private, and as the play goes on we see this is to be the case. Angelo then describes his own moral distinction. It's actually quite ironic, because the play goes on we know that he ends up succumbing to his temptation. So when he goes, "'Tis one thing to be tempted, Escalus, another thing to fall," he's saying, well, it's one thing to be tempted by these sexy women, it's another thing to actually have sex with them, although as we know the plot progresses he ends up, falling for Isabella, and then he thinks that he's having sex with her. Sorry if that spoiled the plot for anyone. If you're watching this, hopefully you know what's going on in the play, because otherwise everything I'm saying is probably making absolutely no sense to you. Angelo actually ends up using short monosyllabic instrumental sentences. So he's saying, Sir, he must die. These are all very blunt words. It's very clear that this is Angelo's belief. He wants it to be followed through. He's not saying, I believe that he should be put to death, because they're longer, most of them are quite short as well. But these are just short, powerful words. And it just makes us have more impact with the audience. The audience thinking, oh my gosh, this Angelo guy means business. Then we've got Elbow who comes in. Now, Elbow, he's basically an idiot, and he provides comic relief through his malapropisms. When you're first reading through this, it's just hell. I was reading through this, I was like, what the hell is he on about? Because all his words, basically malapropism is, I can't even pronounce the word itself, but it basically means you say one thing and you mean elephant. So, I meant another, but I said elephant, so it's something like that. It's hilarious at the time. Now he says it's just really annoying. So he's like, two notorious benefactors. He's seen notorious and benefactor. Obviously, they're not words that you'd put together because he means malefactors. So he mixes up his words because he's quite stupid. He's trying to talk in a higher register than he's actually capable of, really. So he's like, my wife, sir, whom I detest. He means whom I love. Sad. Really sad. And his name's Elbow. They're all named to body parts, these idiots. We've got Pompy, bum, and elbow. The elbow is quite an ugly part of the body, really. I suppose if you hit your elbow, it makes you laugh, so maybe that's what Shakespeare was going for, maybe. And then one of the lords is like, oh, do you hear how he misplaces? So basically, the lord's pointing out that Elbow is making these mistakes in case you were too stupid to get it. And then obviously you've got Pompy Bum there making a pun, he's being funny. He's out at Elbow, ha ha. Hilarious you there, Pompy Bum, ha. Pompey then uses the extended metaphor to tell the story of how he went into he went to a brothel, he wanted to get with someone, and he asks someone, I think it was someone's wife, and he mistook her for a prostitute. But he uses extended metaphor. I mean, these are all words that the audience will be quite familiar with. So we've got the stewed prunes, which is, the prostitutes. She's like, oh, she came in long for stewed prunes. Cracking the stones with the aforesaid prunes. He's basically using an extended metaphor. I mean, maybe this is to be polite in front of these lords, or maybe it's just for comic effect, comic relief for the audience. Shakespeare put it in knowing everyone's going to be chortling away at it. Then Angelo actually leaves on a rather sadistic note. This tells us a lot about his character, and he's like, hoping you'll find a good cause to whip them all. Hoping you'll find it, He really wants them to be whipped. I mean, this is just sadistic, plain evil from the audience point of view. Then as the play goes on, we hear these increasing number of questions, building up so much tension. Like, what was that done to Elbow's wife? What did this gentleman do to her? The audience thinking, oh my gosh, what's happened to this poor woman? I mean, it's just building up tension in the whole play, the theatre, wherever it's performed, the Globe Theatre maybe. And everyone's thinking, oh my gosh, this is shocking stuff. Everyone's questioning what's going on. It makes them more interested in the play. Eventually, Escalus's and Pompey's speech starts to converge. They're both using puns. They're both being, funny, as would be seen back then. She's like, 9 husbands overdone by the last. She's had quite a lot, and she's outlived most of them, all of them. He's like, I would not have you acquainted with tapsters. They will draw you. Obviously, a tapster is someone that draws. Then he's saying you don't want to be acquainted with someone like that, because tapster is probably a name for something that was bad back then. Your bum is the greatest thing about you, talking to Pompey bum, that sort of thing. They're both being funny, having banter with each other. Escalus, however, slightly higher class, he also uses historical references. I shall beat you to your tent and prove a shrewd Caesar to you. This is obviously a reference to Pompey. Pompey was an emperor back in the day. I don't know the full backstory, but there was probably an issue with Pompey and Caesar. Sort of Roman references that more intelligent members of the audience would be quite familiar with. Then Escalus ends up, using very simple speech so that everyone in the play and the cast itself understands what he's saying. In plain dealing, he says that he's using simple speech. You might want to write something about this. If you're writing about Escalus, you'll say, Escalus tends to use more low-frequency lexis, but when talking to the thicker members of the cast, I don't know what you call them, because they're not the cast, they're the actors themselves, they're the characters, but obviously don't write the thicker, write something like the less intelligent, or those of lower class. He uses very simple lexis, such as, I shall have you whipped. Get whipped. That's all obviously very monosyllabic, very common lexis. They probably know it. It's of a rather low register, that sort of thing. Comic relief in the play is provided by Elbow's interaction with Escalus. Escalus asks him, are there no men in your ward sufficient to serve to become policemen? And he asks the names, and the audience has greater knowledge than Elbow, because the audience knows that Elbow is going to be replaced, but Elbow doesn't, so he toddles off to get these names. And I feel a bit bad for him, really, because he's just so stupid, but you know what I mean. Then Escalus declares his true feelings in a monologue. He's like, it grieves me for the death of Claudio. Poor Claudio. This is really sympathetic lexis. We see a different side to Escalus, to the more punishing side. So you start to feel more strongly towards Escalus. Escalus we never have any major emotions for, because he isn't a particularly exciting character, really. He's just too ambiguous for us to feel for. But, we've got positive feelings towards him, whereas with Angelo we've got quite negative associations. Then also, he repeats no remedy, Escalus says, no remedy, which foreshadows Angelo's proposal. Because when Angelo tells Isabella, he's like, there's no remedy to save Claudio, except if you have sex with me. So it's basically a foreshadowing, it's hinting at what's to come, that sort of thing. When someone thinks they're more important than you in your home conversation, they're like, yeah, whatever, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. This is basically Angelo showing his power. He's using short and blunt utterances. He's like, what's the matter? Why dost thou ask again? Dispose of it. He'll probably emphasise these words. Emphasise these words. He's going to emphasise them when he reads it out, the actor will. He's basically, showing his boredom with prophecy. What's the matter again? Dispose of her. It's almost like he's treating her like an animal. This is Isabella we're talking about here. It's like, this shows the gender segregation within society at that time. The majority of Act 2, Scene 2 is a transactional conversation, because Isabella wants something from Angelo, and she's trying to appeal to his positive face needs. Positive face is your need to be praised. She's saying, I'm a royal suitor to your honour. She's praising him, trying to appeal to him, make him feel good. And then Isabella's sharing her views, and she believes that sin is wrong, but doesn't want the sinner to be punished for the sin. Basically, she's trying to use these deep, confusing, ambiguous religious ideas, philosophical ideas, try to trick Angelo almost into saying, yeah, I'll save him. We can actually see Isabella's internal thought process through her choice of Lexis. So she uses the word I had a brother, which implies that she no longer has a brother, which shows that she's really given up hope. But then we've got this Lucio. I mean, if you've seen this live, then it's just the most annoying thing. Lucio's just like, keeps putting in these inputs. He's like, oh, I'm so funny, whatever. And he's like talking just to Isabella, like blanking Angelo, and he's trying to push her to keep going. It's just really irritating and interrupting. He's like, entreat him, you're too cold. Touch him, there's the vein. Ha ha, you're so funny and annoying, Lucio. Sorry, I think you have to see this happen to truly appreciate how annoying Lucio is in this. But I mean, the comments Lucio makes, they're relatively small. They're quite short. I suppose we could take from this that he doesn't want to have too much conversational power. He wants Isabella to be the one doing the work. He doesn't want to feel like he's too involved, because maybe he's got this idea that Angelo and Isabella are going to end up getting together as such. So he's trying to get her to be warmer towards him, nicer, so that he falls for her. But then Angelo doesn't respect Isabella's positive face needs. He's just like, yeah, I'm not going to do it, it's too late, be gone. He's not praising her, he's not being nice to her. He's just, saying, go away, you're annoying me. And the words too late are also quite... The word too is an intensifier, makes it more dramatic. Although Angelo actually ends up converging to Isabella's linguistic style. I mean, I have to read quite a bit of this out for you to be able to see the conversion from his previous speaking style to his new one. But if you read through it yourself, you'll be able to see how his speech gradually becomes more similar to Isabella. This could be deemed to show that he is starting to come around to Isabella's way of thinking. He's starting to understand where she's coming from, that sort of thing. Then we see Angelo trying to shift responsibility. It's clear from this straight away that, like the Duke, he doesn't want to take responsibility for his actions. It says, he's blaming the law. The law hath not been dead, that have slept. Obviously, the word dead resonates through us because we're thinking Claudio's going to die, that sort of thing. And Isabella's trying to give her point, so she's using binary pairs. So great men may jest with saints, but in the less foul profanation. And there's comments about sailors, I think, captains, and then crew members. And she uses quite a few binary pairs, trying to emphasise her point that great men are treated differently to less great men. So that's also Shakespeare trying to show his beliefs on the corruption, the general corruption in Vienna and the power differences and that sort of thing. And then Angelo uses an aside to the audience to share his real thoughts, so we can see Angelo's actual mindset. Rather than when he's speaking to Isabella, we've got his public view, now we get to see his private view. We also got the word breeds in there. Breeds is quite a sexual word. It implies, two animals breeding, having sex. So, we start thinking maybe Angelo's got a different reason for wanting to see Isabella tomorrow. And down there, we've seen that Angelo's arranging to meet Isabella. This builds suspense. There's going to be another meeting between them. What's going to happen? We don't know. Now we've got Angelo's soliloquy once everyone's gone. And this soliloquy, I just love this soliloquy because there's just so much you can draw out of it. I mean, if they gave us this soliloquy in the exam, I would just be over the moon. It would just be brilliant because it's just such a fabulous soliloquy. There's so much you can take out of it. I mean, I've tried not to take too much out of it now because we really haven't got time to go through every single point. But I've taken quite a lot of points, and this is me holding back from taking all the points I possibly can, squeezing it like a sponge until all the water's dripped out. Okay, so we've got Angelo using his soliloquy to show his sexual frustration. He's like, does thou desire her foully? For those things that make her good, so desire and foully. Because this shows that Angelo has got quite a twisted view on sex, because he wants to have sex, but then he knows it's wrong. So he's thinking, oh, do I really want that? And then, we've got our metaphors here, raising the sanctuary and pitching our evils. That means basically feces. There. Obviously, it doesn't mean like anal or anything. It's just like, it's just another way of saying that sex is wrong. It's not the right thing. And then raise the sanctuary, obviously it's quite visual if you picture it. And then within the soliloquy, Angelo's using rhetorical questions, so the audience is thinking, because Angelo's like, what art thou, Angelo? And the audience is like, yeah, really, Angelo, what the hell are you? You're just a beast, you're a monster. You're grim. So the audience is thinking about Angelo, Angelo's thinking about Angelo, everyone's thinking about Angelo, everyone's thinking, ugh. So it immediately turns the audience off Angelo. There might be some sympathy towards Angelo, because the audience can see that Angelo doesn't want this sexual desire. Then Angelo's using repetition to show the strength of his emotions. He's like, Fi means shame, by the way. So, he's saying, shame, I'm so ashamed of myself. And he's just saying again and again, it's emphasising how upset he is at himself that he's fallen into this trap. then there's obviously quite dramatic irony because Angelo wants to have sex with Claudio's sister Isabella when he's going to kill Claudio for having sex with Claudio's girlfriend. Obviously it's a bit dramatic irony. The audience is probably putting two together here. They're thinking, oh look, something's going to happen because obviously this and this is similar. It makes the plot flow a bit nicer as well if we've got all these parallels. And we've got a quote there that supports this quite strongly. Thieves, their robbery, have authority when judges steal themselves. Angelo's basically saying, I'm the judge here, but how can I judge these people when I'm doing exactly the same as them? If you do get a question about the Duke, and you'll probably end up writing about the differences when he's a Duke and when he's being Friar Duke. So basically Friar Duke's when he's in disguise. And these are 3 major differences. He's less elaborate, he speaks in prose quite a bit when he's Friar Duke, and he also does speak in some iambic pentameter depending on who he's speaking to, and he's very catechizing. It basically means he's giving religious instruction. And as you go through, you'll see all these religious words. We've got repent and heaven and benedict or benedict or however you pronounce it, using Latin there, and it's really annoying me because that bit is in a larger font than all the other quotes, but I really can't be bothered to go change it. And he's just using liturgical references. He's trying to be more friary, so we've got, every time you see religious words, just circle them if he's being friar and write about them. So, he's using these religious references to maintain his disguise. He thinks this is going to prevent the other characters from working out who he is. Obviously, in Shakespearean plays, we always have to suspend belief, obviously. I keep saying obviously, might not be obvious. We have to suspend belief because obviously no disguises can be this strong in reality when you've known people all your life. So we're suspending belief. He's probably just got a mask in front of his face or a different hood or something. So we're suspending belief, we're pretending that this disguise is just brilliant. We're returning to Angelo again, and we've got his soliloquy which reminds the audience of the situation. We're mentioning Isabel, and so we know that Angelo is still thinking about Isabel, he still wants to have sex, so he's still lusting after her. Then we've also got these references to religion throughout the soliloquy, which shows Angelo's inner torment, because he's trying to decide, should I choose religion or should I choose my lust? Should I go after what I want or what I should obey? So I've got a heaven in my mouth and chewing on his name. It's the idea of spitting on God, it's not following his work. But then we've also got the chewing his name is like the bread when they have, I think it's communion. I'm not really religious, but it's that thing you eat when you go to church. You have the blood of Christ and then you have the body of Christ, is it? Isn't that cannibalism? Then Angelo's using an extended metaphor to describe his moral rectitude. He's talking about an idle plume. So it's like having a hat with a feather in it. The feather does nothing, it doesn't say anything. It's just there. So you're pretending you've got this authority when really it's just a feather in your hat. I suppose this makes it more interesting for the audience than if you just said, I'll pretend to be all this, but I'm nothing really. It's more interesting for the audience using more literary. It shows Angelo's his prestige in a sense, because he's talking these long, fluttery sentences, his refusal to admit to himself exactly what's going on, that sort of thing. Then we've got Angelo who's using biblical references, again these things that the audience will be quite familiar with. This is to show his moral condemnation. So we're writing good angel on the devil's horn, we're saying, look at this bad man, if we call him good angel everyone's going to believe it. He's basically describing himself. I've written a whole essay on this tiny bit alone, I don't know why. I didn't realise we had a massive passage to write about, so I literally just chose this small soliloquy. And there's so much you can take out of it. Again, I've taken just a few, but the biblical references show his inner turmoil mainly. But then we've also got the irony of the situation through his speech. The audience can see it's really ironic, this is what's happening to Claudio. Then we go on to when Isabella comes in, and Isabella and Angelo turn take, as you would do. And this makes the conversation far more realistic than if one person was just talking on and on and on. It makes it more interesting for the audience as well. It's more entertaining than just hearing Angelo go, oh yeah, I'm going to kill Claudio, la la la. And then we've got Angelo's utterances getting longer and longer and longer. This shows power asymmetry, because Angelo has all the power because he is a male, because he has status, that sort of thing. He's got Isabella's brother's life in his hands. And this just leads to power asymmetry. There's not that much you can write about this because you can't do quotations, and you really want to be doing quotations within your essay. But you could comment on the increasing size of the utterances, and then state why, and maybe why Shakespeare's chosen to do this to make the audience feel sympathetic towards Isabella, maybe. As we go on, we get Angelo propositioning Isabella, who's saying, have sex with me and I'll save your brother. But then we've got Isabella who's acting as though she doesn't understand. I mean, do we know if she's acting if she doesn't understand, or does she not understand at all? I mean, we don't know this as the audience. Angelo doesn't know this. He doesn't know whether she's just trying to pretend to be too innocent, she's too horrified by what he's saying. So we've got this whole situation here, it's a bit ironic. And then we've got Angelo, who basically states he's going to increase the sexual nature of his speech. You could write down, if you're writing this, you might put Angelo speaks in sexual nature. I mean, I don't know why you'd write that, but you might write that down. And then you write it because he is trying to make it clear to Isabella what his intentions are, that sort of thing. And he shows his intention to do this by saying, I'll speak more gross. Obviously, gross is a word which got negative connotations. Back in the day, it meant, speak more sexually, that sort of thing. Angelo then uses a rather simple statement so that both the audience and Isabella have no way of saying, I didn't understand what you mean. Everyone knows what he's on about. Very short, your brother is to die. I mean, everyone knows exactly what that means. You must lay down the treasures of your body. Obviously, he's not being 100% sexual, saying, sleep with me. He's saying even sleep with me is a euphemism. He's using a slight euphemism here, but it's very clear to everyone what he means. Isabella then uses compar, which shows the strength of her views. So, better a brother died than sister die forever. So, dying at once, sister dying forever. Shows the strength of her belief that his brother's just die once. And it's basically her belief that the rape would totally change her and kill her forever. Angelo ends up using rather inclusive language to engage the audience. We are all frail, so the whole audience feels like they're being directly spoken to. We're all being talked about together. We feel as if in one. It draws the audience in. They're more part of the play. They feel more connected to the characters. And it also makes the audience question their own sense of morality. So maybe Shakespeare wrote this play to try to make the audience think about themselves and how they would react in these situations. Isabella then uses plosives and alliteration to emphasise words. Obviously, P, is, spit it out, like P, P. It's quite a hard sound rather than, you can have soft P's, but these are all hard P's. So, pernicious, purpose, present, pardon. It makes all the words there seem more real to the audience. It makes them stand out to the audience thinking, look, he's got this evil plan. Please, pardon me. All these words stand out to the audience in a sentence of words that don't stand out so much. Shakespeare then draws a symmetry between Angelo and Isabella, because Isabella essentially says she's going to blackmail Angelo. She's like, I'll tell the world what you've said if you don't, just let my brother go free. So maybe he's saying that we are all corrupt in a sense. I mean, both of these people claim to be very moral, but quite religious. But obviously, once their morality is put to a test, they crumble. So maybe Shakespeare's pointing out how false all the religion within his time period was. Angelo then cuts Isabella off and gives a nice long, lengthy monologue which shows his domination. Obviously, Isabella can't interrupt because she's got less power in the conversation. Angelo goes on and on, and something he says is, my faults are always your true. Obviously, it's the compare between false and true, which, is essentially the whole play, what is true and what is false. We've got this duke who, friar, he's become a friar. We think he's true, but he's actually false. What he's saying is lies. Truth and lies, justice, this is what the play's all about. Then we have Isabella giving a soliloquy to show the audience her inner thoughts. Obviously, Angelo's gone by now, so it's just Isabella. This is her private face, I suppose, because it's literally just her thoughts inside her head. The audience gets to see exactly what she's thinking rather than all of the long metaphors and ambiguous stuff that she says to Angelo. Isabella uses some rhetorical questions to share her helplessness with the audience, also makes the audience question the situation, they feel more involved. To whom should I complain? And the audience thinking, well, who can she complain to? She's got nobody. Who would believe me? The audience thinking, no, nobody would. Then Isabella tries to gain the audience sympathy. I mean, not only does she use these rhetorical questions, but also she uses the idea of patriarchal paradigm. Paradigm? I can't pronounce that. It's to do with the idea of male dominance. She's trying to share the idea of gender imbalance at the time. I mean, Shakespeare maybe is trying to make a feminist statement. And then Isabella informs the audience of what she's going to do, so that builds tension, because the audience is thinking, ooh, how's Claudio going to react to Isabella telling him of what she said? The audience is already thinking in advance, they want to carry on, they want to watch more, so it builds tension, tension rises, the audience are drawn into the plot, stuff like that. Woo! We've reached the end of Measure for Measure Act 2. Hopefully that didn't exhaust you too much, because it exhausted me quite a lot. Hope it helped. Have a lovely day. Bye. See you next time, I suppose, for Act 3.